And so with Jetstack now, so is it, where are you on kind of that curve when you said you started with services and you've
Yeah,
kind of started to evolve? Tell
yeah.
us a little bit about that.
So we grew out of services. We ended up. I was how am I gonna find customers, because at the time Kubernetes had only just been open sourced, and if you were using containers, you were actually likely to be using Mesos or Mesosphere
Mhm.
for
Right. Yeah.
container orchestration. And then obviously Docker was the hottest company in town. So KubeCon was much smaller than DockerCon. So the early innovators in the space were at DockerCon rather than at KubeCon by the CNCF. So Swarm, which they created to be an orchestrator for Docker, was
Mhm.
actually probably had most of the mind share, at least. So in some ways, Jetstack was one of the was sort of we weren't really a part of the mainstream thinking in those early days by focusing on Kubernetes. So we were a bit unique in that regard, and I spent a lot of time kind of researching who might be using Kubernetes. And there was, for about a period of about a year, I actually personally tracked every mention of Kubernetes on Twitter and every mention of Kubernetes in every job advert worldwide. And then I would personally then contact that person and try to find out what they were doing with the software. And I was trying to figure out sort of, why are you using Kubernetes? Like, what do you see as the value in it? And I just built this great little network, but I couldn't find anyone to actually pay for any services because no one was actually deploying at that point. The only people that I could find to actually pay us were independent software vendors that felt like it had enough potential to become something that would become very valuable, and they would effectively pay us to create connectors for Kubernetes for their existing successful
Yeah,
software.
kind of like that partnership thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where we started. And then the other thing that we did was I went to the source and built a relationship with Google, because I would go to the Google office that just Google Cloud was just kind of starting up to try and compete against Amazon. Part of them open sourcing Kubernetes was obviously to try and compete a little bit against the incumbent, which was AWS. And we would go in and actually educate the Google team on what Kubernetes was. And that was fantastic for us, because they were like, what is Kubernetes? I was like, well, you just open source it, you tell me. But they genuinely didn't know, because it was so new. And there was a number of times that Google has said, don't start a company around Kubernetes, do it around our data service instead. You're much lower
They all
risk.
say that,
Yeah,
don't they? Yeah.
And I was quite scared. And then other people said, don't start a company around Kubernetes, because serverless will just end up taking over everything. So, what's the point of focusing on a container orchestrator or a cluster manager?